Hi guys, my name is Miss Saccone and this is 9th grade English. Okay, so for our third day of classes, our agenda is that we're going to do our first journal entry, and then right after that we're going to be reading Langston Hughes poetry, and we're going to be reading I2 to be specific. After that we're going to do a group discussion on the poem, what you noticed, maybe what you took note of. You're going to be doing some work in your groups. And then you're going to kind of reflect on the literary devices. We're going to be practicing our annotation skills that we've been working on the past few days. And then you have an exit ticket at the very end that I'm going to need to collect at the end of class before you leave. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so the prompt for your journal entry, if you have your journals out, and if you want to do it in a digital format, you can too, and just send it to me or email it to me by the end of class. Is how much experience do you guys have with reading poetry? I know we read Emily Dickinson last night, but aside from that, how much experience maybe in previous classes have you had? Did you like it? Did you dislike reading it? And just kind of maybe give me your opinion on poetry. Even if it's like, oh, I've never read poetry like ever. That's okay, because you're going to in this class because I like poetry a lot, so you're going to be reading it a lot. And I'll give you guys like 10 minutes. It's been 10 minutes. It's been 10 minutes. Okay, does anyone want to share their journal entries at all? Oh my, yes, Brian.
I don't have a lot of experience with poetry. Since I don't have a lot of experience with poetry, I can't really tell if I like it. In 8th grade, we read some poem about football. I didn't mind it, but didn't connect with me. I like to read more poetry that connects with me more.
Okay, thank you. What kind of poetry would you connect with, you think? Like stuff you like? Stuff you've done?
I don't know yet. Maybe I like the Emily Dickinson one we read.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's more optimistic.
Yeah. So sad poetry isn't really your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. But the themes in poetry are low-key universal, guys. So you guys could relate to it. Trust. Okay. So at this point, people have shared their journal entries. So, at this point, I've passed out all of your copies of Langston Hughes' poem I2. There's a physical version, a version of it in Spanish. I have an audiobook version, a digital version, whatever version works best for you. But here's a bit of context as to who Langston Hughes is. Does anyone know who Langston Hughes is before I start? Does anyone have any idea on who Langston Hughes is? Yeah?
Is he a poet?
He is a poet. That's awesome. Does anyone know what kind of poetry he specialized in? Or maybe what he liked to write about? Or what time he wrote it? It was a pretty crucial time in our art history, especially in our English history. Yeah, Brian?
1929.
That poem was written around that time, yeah, 1929-ish, 1926-ish. 1926, yeah. So, outside of the context that Brian gave, thank you, Brian, for participating. I really appreciate that. But Langston Hughes, a very quick overview of him. He was an American poet, and he was a American poet and a social activist for racial equality. Now, can anyone tell me what you guys think that sentence means? An American poet and social activist for racial equality. Does anyone know what a social activist is? Brian?
It's a person who advocates for social justice.
Yeah. Social inequalities that are happening in their community, maybe a lack of resources for certain groups, discrimination. I know you guys have learned about racism and maybe homophobia and different kinds of prejudices in other classes. So he was a very big writer during the Harlem Renaissance era, which, has anyone heard of the Harlem Renaissance at all? No? You'll learn more about this later on, but for a very quick overview, in the 1920s, the economy was booming in the US, as people might know that, the Roaring 20s. Has anyone heard of the Roaring 20s? Kind of, not really. Well, it was a time of really prosperous economic wealth in the United States. So because of that, there was a lot more funding that could go to the arts. And that actually was incredibly beneficial for the community in Harlem, New York City. And it was booming in Black culture and Black art and African American art because they were getting more funding for it because the economy was doing really well. So Langston Hughes is an incredibly well-known and successful and talented writer from that era. So a lot of his poetry kind of focuses on the Harlem Renaissance and Black culture and Black issues that were happening at that time. So think 1920s, 1930s. Some of his poetry goes up until the 60s. So that's some time context for you. And I don't know if you guys know a lot about African American rights during that time, but they definitely weren't as good as they are now. Even now there's issues, but yeah, a lot of his poetry is from the 20s to the 50s, and specifically we are reading I Too. So anyone have any questions on Langston Hughes? I know it's a really brief overview, but I wanted people to get a general idea of him before we just start reading him. No? Okay. All right. So you guys are going to have a little bit of independent reading time. I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to read the poem independently, and then I'm going to read the poem again out loud. And I want you guys to annotate and look for narration, repetition, and word choice. And I would love it if you guys could practice some of those annotation strategies we have been learning the past few days. Think of your SWIFT acronym for structure, word choice, imagery, figurative language, and then theme and tone. So, I know it's a lot, but I'll give you guys some time, and I'll come back. Right, it's been 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. Okay. I just want to check back. Is everyone good? Did everyone get a solid overview? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I'm going to read the poem out loud for you guys so that maybe you guys can also get a chance to hear it out loud, because sometimes poetry sounds a little bit different when it's being spoken to you. Okay. So this is I Too by Langston Hughes in 1926. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well, and I grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. Now I just want everybody to read the poem again to themselves just one more time. Yeah? Okay. Thank you guys. So I'm gonna give everybody a little bit of time to work in their groups. You're in groups of about 4 to 5 students. And I just want you guys to maybe switch around your annotations. So if everybody wants to shift their paper to the right, so the student to the right of you, give them your paper, so then everybody ideally has somebody else's annotations. I want you to take note of what your peer has sort of highlighted and circled, and take a note of, maybe compare it to yours, and also during that time, maybe talk about what themes you noticed, maybe similar imagery that you took note of, that kind of thing. So I'm also going to give you guys a few minutes to do that, and I'm going to walk around the room to make sure that people are doing that well. So at this point, I'm like circling around groups, and I'm kind of doing my rounds. And Brian, how's your worksheet coming along? How are your annotations? Can I look at them?
Yeah.
Thank you. Whose paper did you swap with?
It was Rebecca and John.
Okay. So what did they kind of take note of, you think, that like maybe was similar to you? Did they circle similar things that you did?
So they got me on the metaphor, because I didn't understand the figurative language in the poem. So they kind of explained it more to me, the common themes of eating at the table, and how it's kind of like about the African American experience, and the table is like the broad part of society, the white parts of society, and then being sent to the kitchen is kind of just them being excluded rather than being included. And then it rhymes back to the end, being like, I'm going to be sitting at the table, and you guys are going to feel ashamed of not having me at this table. And did kind of Rebecca and did they kind of help you get to that kind of? They did help me get to that conclusion. Yeah. Just so you guys have the context as well, that it's a metaphor, yeah, but that did also like happen. Like African Americans often who were like house maids or like chefs, like they would also just eat in the kitchen. Like, yeah, it's a metaphor, but also there is like truth to it. They were sent to eat in the kitchen. They weren't oftentimes allowed to eat at like the main table. And then another part of this
and I'm gonna kind of let you guys do this again. You can do it as a group or you can choose it individually. Pick maybe one word from this poem that you found to be interesting and kind of think about why, and we're gonna do a full group discussion about it, okay? So at this point, it's been like 10 minutes at this point. I've gone around to all the groups and people are kind of getting the messages of the poem. They're having their own conversations about it. And I've asked students to take note of one word from the poem that they personally found interesting and kind of why. So now that you guys have talked in a group, does anyone maybe want to share the word that they picked and why they picked it? Brian, you're so good at participating today. Yes, Brian.
I actually had a very difficult time picking a word. As I felt like one singular word was very hard to pick out of the poem, but the one word I picked was ashamed, because just because of how it kind of almost wraps it up, like it was either that or America for me, and I had a tough time picking between ashamed and America, because I feel like ashamed brings such an emotional backing to the later end of the poem, and then just follows to the I too am American, which kind of wraps up the I too sing America, or I am America, and just the ashamed factor and how the people for excluding the author or whoever's this poem's point of view is from, just to be ashamed that they weren't allowed to be part of the table, be part of whatever society, or just anything. I just think shame is a very strong feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that you picked the word ashamed, because at least I know that when I've talked about this poem before to other classes or to other people, when I ask them about the tone of the poem, there's a lot of pride in it. I think, and I've heard of a lot of other people say, and I heard around from some of the groups that I was talking about when tone came up in conversation, that Hughes actually sounds incredibly proud, which is kind of the exact opposite of shame, yet shame is mentioned a lot kind of in that poem, and that idea of being shamed and being shunned. So Brian, thank you very much for sharing. I very much so appreciate that. Does anyone else want to comment? No? That's okay. That's okay, and you don't have to. Because I did hear you guys talking in your groups, and it was some really good conversations that I heard. So thank you guys. I just actually had a brief refresher on the poem myself, and I haven't read it in a while. So it's really great when you can kind of step back from poetry, even if it's been a few years, and read it again. You always pick up kind of different things. So even though you're in freshman year of high school right now, you might read this in college and have an entirely other kind of perspective on the poem, which is kind of cool. Who knows? All right, but let's talk about like the meaning of the poem itself. And I know that we have a little bit, but I know Brian kind of mentioned the narrator of this poem. We don't really have an idea as to who the narrator is. It's never explicitly said. A lot of poems aren't necessarily the author's point of view. Sometimes it is like actually them speaking. Sometimes it is a character that they make. Oftentimes it's kind of like an entity or just kind of like a voice representing something else. So I kind of want to ask you guys, do you think maybe the narrator of this is Hughes himself, or do you think it's the African-American community, or maybe do you think it's something else? Brian?
I like the last part you said, as the narrator could be an entity representing something else, because what you said before, as the poem, as the African-Americans weren't allowed to eat at the table, and they were usually sent to the kitchen instead. So the I, maybe a broader experience, like what you said, the entity, or the broader concept of the deeper narrative, like, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. No, I get what you're saying. And kind of in relation to like the narrator, who do you guys, when Hughes was writing this poem in 1926, possibly in the Harlem Renaissance, possibly around that time, who do you think he was writing this poem for? Or maybe two? Do you guys have an idea as to what you personally think his audience would be? I know it's kind of a deep question, so if you need a minute, I'll give you a minute. If you want to look back at your poem for anything you've taken note of. And there's no necessarily wrong answers in this. I just want to know your opinion. Brian?
I mean, the second line is, I am the darker brother, which I think is referring to, obviously, you said the Harlem Renaissance, part of the African-American people going through the 1920s, which you said was a very hard time in America, even now. So it's definitely going out to African American people because it's tied to their experience.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I've gotten that perspective a lot, and it's one that I kind of lean towards. However, a lot of people have also argued that maybe Hughes is writing this for also a white audience in a way for it to be kind of a critique of them and for them to kind of take note of the way that they've historically shunned African Americans and treated them very poorly. However, I do think with the prideful tone of Hughes, I think it's almost kind of like a love letter to that community and sort of a message, because there was a lot of social activism, especially through art, happening at that time. So I kind of agree. A lot of art by African American communities talking about this kind of social justice activism was geared as a way to kind of get people to rise up and kind of stand together and have pride in your identity, because then we'll all come together and we're stronger as a unit. You know what I mean? So thank you guys for sharing your opinions. I really, really appreciate it. All right. And I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I really wanted you guys to read this poem to get an idea of repetition in poetry, as well as narration. So narration in general is the act of telling a story or series of events through the specific voice of a narrator. In poetry, the narrator can be the author themselves or another character, or like I've mentioned, an entity representing kind of another group. And we've already kind of talked, and I've heard you guys talking around in your groups that you definitely lead towards that kind of larger entity that Hughes is kind of representing through his voice. I kind of want to talk about the repetition in this poem, though, because that's kind of another, especially device in poetry, and I even think it was kind of prevalent in the Emily Dickinson poem that we had for homework. Do you guys think there's repetition in this poem? If so, where? And maybe why do you think it's there? Brian?
I have a question, not about that, but you said divisive poetry?
Huh?
Did you say divisive poetry?
No.
Oh, no.
Okay. I did not say divisive poetry. I think I said repetition in poetry.
Oh, okay.
But it kind of came off as divisive poetry. Do you have a comment on the repetition in this poem, though?
Actually, yeah, I do. Is it, I could be completely wrong, is it just the repetition of eat, kitchen, the beginning and the end where it says I too sing America, and then at the end it's I too, I am America? It just kind of replaces it, but makes it different, yet keeps repetition from the beginning.
Why do you think he replaces that one word in the line? What's the point of that? That's a big question.
I'm confused about the first part, the I too sing America, but the last part I'm guessing is because of his, this world at the end, like the tomorrow, the optimistic version, is that he is part of America.
Yeah.
Not just someone singing about America. I don't get
the sing part. Well, let's think about singing. Let's think about singing as like an act that one does. I think let's especially think of like American singing, maybe like country music. When you guys hear about country music, right? I guess that's kind of has a lot of American values tied to it. Oftentimes, even that kind of music, when you're singing it, you're oftentimes singing about something that you're kind of proud of, something that you like singing about, something that you like talking about. I think when he's talking about singing in this poem, it's also kind of an act of pride. You know, if you're singing about your country, you are nationalistic of it and you're proud of it. Yet he can't really call this country home because it's not really accepting of him. Yeah?
Is it like singing the national anthem when that anthem doesn't excludes you?
That's actually a great comment. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think it's definitely kind of commentary on that and that idea that we do sing for our country. And it's a prideful act. You do it out of pride for the place that you're from, but he doesn't really feel like he can necessarily do that. Does anyone else want to talk about the repetition kind of in that poem? Because it definitely goes from the I sing America to the I too am America. So it's kind of like you're singing about it and then you are it. Yeah.
It says when company comes twice. So is it just trying to get into the thought that when people are coming over, it's either you're out of here, and then the opposite one is when company comes, you get to stay, because it's each, what's it called, like the paragraph in poetry?
Oh my god.
Stanza?
A stanza. Yep.
A stanza?
I'm a little tired, but a stanza. Yep.
A stanza. So it differs from each stanza. as the other one is obviously the more darker part, and the second one is more of trying to ingrain it in your brain that the same situation's happening.
Yep.
But different results. Is that kind of what it's getting at?
Kind of.
Because when company comes.
I think that's just kind of in reference to when people are over, because a lot of I think he's specifically referring to African Americans in this poem very specifically that work for like a white family and that work kind of in the house.
Okay.
So I think that it's more of just straight up that.
Okay.
But you can also 100% view it that way. Poetry is sort of viewed in any way. So you can kind of depict it that way if you want to. But I do get where you're coming from and actually never thought about it that way. And that's definitely something that I can look into. Because I can't see it being that way. Like when you come in here, do you mean like if you come to this country and you're more white presenting, you're going to get a much different experience than if you are of darker skin?
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah.
And it's also just that it just, since we're on the topic of repetition, it's just a line that repeats twice in both stanzas.
Yeah.
Or it is in both stanzas.
Yeah.
And after the repetition, it kind of stops to give different results.
Yeah.
So, like, but I laugh, and then to the second one, nobody out there, and say to me, eat in the kitchen then. So just in resisting that, being told what to do, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Brian. Does anyone else have any comments that they want to make about the repetition specifically? No? It's okay. Repetition, especially in poetry, but even repetition in the literature that we're going to read throughout this year, repetition possibly in To Kill a Mockingbird, that we're going to look at, and the other poetry we're going to look at, it's oftentimes used to kind of reinforce a specific theme or idea. So the I too sing America to I too am America, it's been repeated multiple times, and that kind of change in the repetition, even if it's just one word. I mean, we've had a whole conversation about this change in that one word that Hughes chose. It oftentimes is used to just very much so reinforce a very kind of specific idea that the author might want the reader to understand. And it's a very powerful literary tool that we're going to see a lot more in the semester. Same with narration, even narration in To Kill a Mockingbird. We're going to talk about how Scout is a wicked, big, unreliable narrator. An adorable character and one that I love a lot, but a very unreliable narrator, and that's kind of how we interpret a lot of the scenes in the book. Yeah?
Never mind. You can finish your part.
Okay, that's it. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, how does this poem relate to Kill a Mockingbird? I've never read it.
Well, I'm gonna have you guys turn in some of your annotations, so I'm gonna give them back to you. I'm just gonna take them for participation credit, and I want you to kind of hold on to this poem while we're reading it. There's some themes in the racial injustices that Hughes talks about, to some that are found in To Kill a Mockingbird, that we're gonna get into. And I know I've given you guys some context and some historical context so far, but it is taking place in 1930s in a southern town in Macomb, Alabama, and it's specifically focused on, this isn't a spoiler, the trial of Tom Robinson, an African-American man who was accused of doing really awful things to a white woman in the town. That's explained early on, but there's some very similar parallels that Hughes is talking about to the things that Tom and other African-American members in that community experience. So actually throughout this unit, we're going to be reading a lot of African-American poetry. Some that talk about these ideas and some that just don't and are just really great pieces. And this was also written around the same time. So this was written in 1926, and then the early 1930s is kind of where To Kill a Mockingbird takes place. So even though it's very different areas of the U.S., this is kind of New York, and that's Alabama, issues are still happening, and issues are worse in other areas of the U.S. compared to others, which we will also learn about. Okay, you guys have been very wonderful. You guys have been wonderful participants. Thank you. Everyone at this point should have a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, whether it's an audio version. I have audio versions on our Google Classroom on YouTube for the chapters, the PDF version online if you want to read it on a Kindle, or the physical handout books that I've given to all of you. And your homework will be to read the first chapter of To Kill a Mockingbird, and I would love it if you guys could take note of a few of the things that you found interesting, maybe 3 interesting aspects of your first chapter, whether it's a character, a scene, a line. I don't care what it is, just take note of 3 things that you found in that first chapter that you could bring to a discussion that you thought were interesting. Okay, so then also at your desk, I've asked you guys not to touch it, but there should be a sticky note. I would like it if everybody could write their name on the top. And this will kind of be your exit ticket of the day. There's a jar right next to the door to leave out of the classroom. You're just going to drop it in that jar. Make sure your name's on top of it so you get credit. And it'll be a little participation credit. Very easy little way to boost your grade, guys. I'm trying to be nice. On the sticky note, I would like for you guys to write one takeaway you got from this lesson. It can be about the figurative language. It can be about Hughes himself, the messages in the poem, whatever you guys want. Just one thing that you took away, and just put it in that jar as you leave. And you guys know the homework. And if you have any questions, you can email me. And yeah, that's about it.